Some people think just following a diet to the letter of the law is extreme. But to me, that's not extreme. That's extreme discipline.
Yeah.
But it's not irrational, extreme working out till you drop every single day of the week. Those are two different types of extremes, in my opinion. And I think there's a way that we should differentiate those types of extremes, because sticking to a very healthy diet, which I laid out before, a lot of people think is extreme.
Inform Nation, welcome in to the Inform Fitness Podcast with New York Times best-selling author Adam Zickerman. In just a moment, Adam will be joined by Mike Rogers from the New York City Inform Fitness location. Sheila Melody from the Toluca Lake, Los Angeles location is still out, but will be back with us again next week. I'm Tim Edwards with the Inbound Podcasting Network and a client of Inform Fitness. Now, last week, Adam, Mike, and I discussed the potential dangers of not closely modulating high-intensity exercise programs, such as those found at CrossFit, excessive spin classes, or marathon training. Well, today we'll be discussing the merits of developing an extreme attitude about a reasonable plan, especially when it comes to your diet, which is what pillar number 2 is of this high-intensity strength training protocol found in Adam's book, Power of 10, the once-a-week slow-motion fitness revolution. Now, if you're a subscriber or a regular listener of the podcast, you already know that earlier this year, Adam adopted a ketogenic diet. Now, some would say that would be an extreme dietary plan. Or is it? Adam will update us on his progress and the results of going keto, plus a lot more. So without further ado, here's Adam.
One thing about extremes, it reminds me of some advertisements that I see in the airports. It's the same picture side by side. Let's say it's an antique piece of furniture. And one person might look at that as garbage, and somebody else might look at it as art, something like that. There's an analogy here because we think of what we do as an extreme minimalism. You can look at this as, we're trying to do as little exercise as possible as you need. And some people think that's extreme. Some people see the level of going to muscle failure as an extreme. Some people think eliminating carbohydrates or refined carbohydrates from your diet is extreme, and not having any sugar and doing something like a ketogenic diet. They see that as extreme. On the other hand, the same person that does a ketogenic diet might think that the gross amount of carbohydrates that somebody is eating is extreme. And from a biological standpoint, there's an argument to be made that, keto is not extreme at all. I mean, ketogenic diet is absolutely normal, so because that's my perception. My perception is modern diet is extreme. Again, how do you define a ketogenic diet? Well, you have to be in ketosis. You got to be basically using ketones as fuel and fat for fuel. So in other words, the metabolic pathway exists and people are on it healthfully for a long time. So it can't be that extreme, first of all. Yeah. Secondly, what I do in a ketogenic diet, if I didn't call it a ketogenic diet and I didn't mention that you happen to be in ketosis, and if I said to somebody, this is what I normally eat, and I say, for breakfast, I have a couple of eggs, right, and some water and some greens, and then for lunch I have a salad with nuts and vegetables, and I put olive oil on it. All right, and I put maybe a couple of ounces of chicken or cheese, and then for dinner I have a whole plate of Brussels sprouts and a 6-ounce piece of salmon. Now, would somebody say that's extreme?
No.
And if I ate like that for 3 months straight, I'd be on a ketogenic diet. And if I ate those same meals every single day, or meals just like that, in macronutrient makeup, nobody would call that extreme. It sounds like a vegetarian diet with some lean meats, a little portion of lean meats on the side, right? No one's going to say that's extreme diet if they hear it that way. But if I say that, oh, by the way, by eating that way and not having any bread or rice or any of those other things, then all of a sudden it becomes an extreme diet. But that's what I did for 90 days. I ate like that. Yes, the amount of butter and the amount of oils I put on my salads were high, but there are all the healthy oils, right? With some controversy. The avocado oils, the olive oils, coconut oil. I know that's kind of controversial, but it's not. It's not to me. It's not extreme to me.
People have expectations based on their experience, and it's where their early judgments come in. And oftentimes, when they take the time to actually listen to what Adam just said, like if they didn't hear the word ketogenic and heard, oh wow, that's just relatively sustainable. It is very sustainable. And I mean,
so if somebody said to me, that's a good experiment. A lot of people ask me, what do you eat, right? And they expect me to kind of sum it up in a name, like a certain type of a noun, like it's a keto or the paleo diet,
or if you're describing
vegetarian.
If you're describing it, they say, oh, you're doing the paleo diet. Right. Well, not really.
Well, you know what? That's a good experiment. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to say, instead of saying what do I call it, I said I don't know what I call it, but this is what I eat. Let me tell you what I eat. You tell me what it is.
And no one will look at you crooked that way. That's right.
I say, it sounds like a very well-balanced diet. I mean, that's hard for people to do. In our day and age, it is very hard for somebody to eat like that because of all the choices and the options. Because we do have pizza and cereal and cookies,
but also their experience. For example, like the idea of what your breakfast can be. We've grown up and we thought, okay, it's eggs and bacon or cereal or a bagel and cream cheese or pancakes or French toast. And if you're going really healthy, it's yogurt or oatmeal, okay, or something like that. How we grew up. But the thing is, and people ask me what I have for breakfast, which oftentimes I actually half the week I skip it because I have no problem doing that, and I actually like to do that.
Is that part of an intermittent fast, or is that just because you're busy?
It's a slight extended fast, and oftentimes it's because I'm just busy. But honestly, I'm used to it. And I don't mind it, and it has actually worked for me and my body and my results. But what I was going to say before was, the idea when I do have breakfast, oftentimes it's leftover dinner, which could be just like a little bit of a veal chop and some salad from the neighborhood. Everyone, you're gonna eat that for breakfast? Like that's like the craziest thing they ever heard in their life. And the thing is, it's just vegetables and meat, and which it's not that big of a deal. But it's amazing how people wince and are like they're complete. They tilt their heads and they're completely like that. That is unbelievable.
They're conditioned to breakfast foods is just for breakfast, and how can you even have that for lunch or have a lunch for dinner or whatever? You're just fueling your body.
Right. It's exactly. It is relatively, but I think it's better to talk about, when we are talking to people who have certain expectations and make judgments based on those expectations, it's better to sort of, I think, and it takes a little bit extra time, but to actually spell it out the way Adam did before, because it really actually makes relatively common sense to almost anybody, regardless of what your dietary beliefs are.
Well, it also comes down to your motivation.
I eat mostly vegetarian diet, and the difference is that I use the vegetables that I eat as fat vehicles, if you will. That's how I get my fat intake. So the trick is eating vegetables with all the really good oils. And then you have a little bit of the salmon that brings with it some of its healthy fats, as well as either well-raised chicken and well-raised meats as best as possible, cooked properly, and that's it. I mean, all right, if you're a vegetarian, that doesn't sound right, but that's not but overall, no one's going to argue with eating small amounts of animal protein with a mostly vegetarian diet with healthy oils. That is basically a ketogenic diet. Everyone imagines when you hear ketogenic or Atkins-style diets or paleo, they're all walking around with big old turkey legs in their hand, gnawing at animal products with a side of bacon. It's people do that, and it's usually too much protein.
In this case, extremes is really a matter of perception, right? Like it's how they're perceiving a diet. For instance, when you started your ketogenic diet right around the top of the year, right? You went in specifically to go keto. You didn't become keto as by just changing your diet. So therefore the perception was, you're doing something extreme. But really when you pull back and look at it, you're just eating healthy.
I'm eating the way I think. I mean, this is open for debate, and we can bring on some guests that might disagree with me. I'd like to do that possibly.
Your blood test would really be great to share with our audience as well, too.
Yes. I think, from my perspective and from the research I've done, that being in a state of ketosis for the most time, eating the way I described, I gave you a sample meal, for example, which is for a guy at my weight and height, is couple thousand calories a day. I do it in a way that, a couple of times a week I'm intermittent fasting, but that's basically how I'm eating. And that is generally being in a state of ketosis for most of the time. And I think for me, it's the healthiest way to eat. Now, I understand that it's a very hard thing to maintain for a lot of people. And I think compliance for that is tough because you have all the temptations and people love a lot of the other foods out there that they would essentially have to give up. And some people don't want to live like that.
Well, if we reference
those
back,
are like little choices you have to make in your life and about how you want to live. Do you remember, Tim? You were in New York last week, and we went over to PJ Clark's and had a really nice lunch. And I told Tim, "You got to try the burger here. It's awesome." He's like, "Well, you're not having it?" I'm like, "No, I've had it before. But I'm gonna have the swordfish and the zucchini linguine. And I had a glass of water and everything. And it was a very, very super healthy lunch. And I mean, and he had a great burger, which if I hadn't had it before, I would have also had it. And frankly, I told you, and you know something, all week, and for the last, for the most part, that's generally how I'm eating most of the time. But for what works with Mike Rogers is I feel my brain needs to take a little time off. And I was at the Dodgers-Mets game on Saturday, and I ate perfectly all week. And then I was at the Dodgers game, and I had, and I'm not kidding, 2 Shack burgers, a hot dog, a chocolate shake, 2 beers, and some of my son's Cracker Jacks. Okay, so I don't even think I had the salad that was in the Shack burger. I was like, but my point is, but you know something? I did it. I had a great time at the ball game, and Sunday morning I woke up and I was back on track again. Well, and that's the way I run my life, and it's good for me.
Well, it works for you. I met you for the first time last week face-to-face after doing the podcast for about a year and a half now, and you obviously you look trim and fit, so whatever you're doing is certainly working for you.
Frankly, it was a process, and it takes time. I actually think that there is a fat guy inside of me, okay, that really wants to come out. And the thing is, this is what I'm trying to say, that we're not alone here. No one's alone here. It's mostly hard work for almost everybody to create a certain level of discipline that makes them closer to their goals. And, the ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting has found a home with Adam now, and that may not last forever, but for now it makes complete sense to him. And most of my nutrition is close to that as well, but it's a little bit different.
Well, I was just on a cruise to Alaska. I just got back from an Alaska cruise, and, the food is 24/7 there. And 80% of the time I was just eating whatever the hell I wanted, which quite honestly was not according to the ketogenic plan. I had shitty home fries, and stuff that I've been not having for a long time. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm on a cruise. But you know what? I don't know. I don't feel that good now.
Well, see, and that's the thing. I was going to ask you, so you've been relatively disciplined for now going on, like 8 months or so. And so you go and mentally indulge, and you don't feel that good right now as a result of it. So my question was, how disciplined have you been over the last 8 months? Because you said in the last couple of episodes where we talked about this is, when you go keto, people that have been compliant for a large amount of time, they lose the craving. And you said, no way, you still crave those crappy steak fries
no, for me, I haven't.
You haven't lost the craving?
For me, it's an addict thing. It really is. And I think for most people it is. I mean,
it is for me.
Me too.
You have to AA it.
Yeah.
As I like to say. You can't have one drink.
Right.
If you really want to stay, and I'm contemplating it. I'm contemplating rarely going off the way I've been, since my experiment, I've been maybe 70% eating on track and then 30% off. So I haven't been all that great, and I've gained some of the weight back, and my digestive system is not as good as it was again.
So by not being 100% compliant, you're noticing.
I'm already noticing it, and
Tim. Honestly, like my whole thing, when I simplify things in my own mind. this doesn't work for everybody, but like if there's 21 meals in a week, my rule is kind of like 19, make them perfect, and 2 kind of let them be as objectionable as you want. And the truth is, you know what that gets me? About 95% of the results that I want, not 100.
That's a good trade, though.
If I want 100, I think I have to work harder, frankly. But I've decided that at the moment, I'm happy with 95% of what I really want for myself. You know, obviously it's complicated. You have your work life, your family life, vacations. This is not easy stuff, but generally when you're...
Some people can do that. I think some people can say out of the 21 meals, I'm going to be a good 18 of them, and that's it. But the problem is, you start a plan like that. I mean, I talk about in my book, a free day. You eat well for 6 days and you have one free day, and a little short-sighted, or at least I should have brought this up at the time, and I'm bringing it up now, is that for some people that have the discipline to be good 18 and not have the other meals kind of throw you off, that's what ends up happening. You start that thing, and you say, okay, you work up to your free meal, or your free, out of the 21, your
cheat day.
I'm going to take my 19th meal right now, and but that 19th meal leads to never getting back on track.
It's a backsliding.
For a lot of people. So it's almost like, again, that's what I mean when I AA it. It means for some people, you're better off just not doing that.
Yeah, agreed.
And staying draconian. And a lot of people are not willing to be draconian. It's, and I ask people when weight loss is a goal, I said, how important is it? Because as we talked about on the Secret Life of Fat episode, and how hard it is to lose body fat and what it entails, how badly do you really want it? And bringing it back to extremes, a lot of people still have this notion that the more exercise they do, they can compensate for getting off track on their eating, and it never works. In 20 years, by the way, I've seen plenty of people lose lots of weight by watching what they eat and just doing a small amount of exercise, whereas I've never seen anybody, and I can probably say never, just exercise and add a lot of exercise without changing their eating, lose a lot of weight. I've never seen it.
No.
I've never seen that. So, diet is everything. And then you have to say how important, once they get to that realization and they stop with this, I got to keep exercising mentality. Once they realize that, and they say, well, how important is it to you really lose those 15, 20, 30 pounds? Because if it is really important to you, this is what you're going to have to do.
It's all or nothing. Yeah.
It's literally it's having an extreme attitude towards sticking to a reasonable plan. And
some people think that's not the extreme we're talking about, which is a great point, Mike. I mean, that's what Mike and I were talking about yesterday, privately. I mean, some people think just following a diet to the letter of the law is extreme, but to me that's not extreme. That's extreme discipline. But it's not irrational extreme working out till you drop every single day of the week. Those are two different types of extremes, in my opinion. And I think there's a way that we should differentiate those types of extremes, because sticking to a very healthy diet, which I laid out before, a lot of people think is extreme.
Abstinence is extreme.
But if you want to call it extreme, maybe call it extreme discipline.
Yeah.
All right, but it's not extreme like going to CrossFit every single day kind of extreme, expecting certain types of results, or extreme types of stretching, thinking you're going to increase your flexibility and become less injury prone, and doing those types of extremes. That's a different type of extreme, in my opinion, but maybe they're not. So I'd like to hear people's opinions about, this, because to me, those are two different types of extremes, but maybe other people see it as the same exact thing.
I know I've said this before on the podcast, and I discuss it with the clients all the time, but when someone wants a result in any aspect of their life, it usually requires planning and focus and accountability and discipline. And that's just what it is. And that's with anything. You have a deliverable for your boss or a client, you can't just wing it. It really requires a lot of focus
and dedication.
And people who take those steps usually succeed at those types of things. And this is coupled with your health goals. Oftentimes are not necessarily coupled with, but are adulterated with, oftentimes, addiction. And especially when the nutrition comes in, and our habits, the routines that we already set that are settled in, our cravings for certain foods at certain times of day and stuff like that. And this is a very hard fought battle for every one of us. And even Adam, who's got an incredible level of discipline, and myself, compared to most people who I deal with, I have a lot of discipline, but I still felt I wanted to have those Shack burgers, and that was what was fun to me at the baseball game.
Right.
I guess I didn't really need to, but frankly, I wanted to. But what I want, this is
it's enhancing an experience too, right? And then you have these various experiences in life and maybe food is just a part of that enhancement. And so how sustainable is it to stay extreme, with air quotes, right? Adam, you mentioned you've been extremely disciplined for the majority of this year, and
it goes into what Adam said before: how bad you want your goals.
This is an interesting point. Actually, it made me think of something. Like what Mike just said. I mean, first of all, number one question is how important is it to you to have a certain level of fit health, right? So, and how important is it to you for these markers to improve, whether it be low body fat and 6-pack abs, and therefore really good digestion, and in my case, no more back pain and less inflammation, and higher chance of not getting cancer as a result of not flooding my system with sugar all the time. And I mean, how important is all that? And for the sacrifice of not having a lot of foods that I want, and like you were just talking about, not having a lot of experiences, because food is surrounded by experiences. It's associated with experiences. A hot dog at a baseball game, things like that. So this is interesting. I had to make a paradigm in those 90 days. There was a permanent change that occurred with me, and that is this: that I put a lot more emphasis on the food experience than I needed to. In other words, for example, I would say to myself, are you kidding me, Adam? You can't enjoy a good baseball game without shoving your face with hot dogs and Applejack? I mean, if it wasn't for the apple... What do you call it?
Cracker Jacks.
If it wasn't for the Apple Jacks, it's cereal. Yeah, I like that too, actually. I used to love Apple Jacks. Anyway, so you're telling me, Adam, that if you don't have the Cracker Jacks and the hot dog and the beer, that you can't enjoy yourself at this game? I mean, if you're telling me, Adam, that if you don't drop acid at a Grateful Dead concert, you're not going to have a good time? Come on. I mean, seriously, can't you love the music for the music? Can't you love the game for the game?
Or like going out to dinner.
The Deadheads.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
No, but it goes to what, or going to a restaurant. For instance, like my wife and I want to go out to dinner, and I'm on this, whatever diet I'm on at that time, and focusing more on the company at the restaurant than the food.
And that's what happened with me. That's what happened to me in those 90 days. I forced myself. At the beginning, it was contrived. I was like, listen, Adam, you're not going to eat it because you're on this 90-day commitment, and all these listeners to the podcast are actually counting on you to be part of it. So I had a lot of responsibility. I had a lot of accountability. I had a lot of motivation to stick to it, right? And so I wasn't going to switch. I wasn't going to cheat. And therefore, I had to distract myself. I had to all of a sudden pay more attention to my wife during dinner than shoving my face with French fries and bread and wine and alcohol.
I can only imagine the hell that was.
But it enhanced things. It's like when you're blind, your sense of touch gets better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And your other senses improve. And that's what happened. My other senses, in a way, improved as a result of me not reaching for the food to fill a void.
You are so much hotter now that you just said that.
Yeah, and it was exciting. It was exciting. Not to say
Mike's
that I haven't
too.
slipped since then, Not to say that I haven't slipped since then. But I missed that. I missed those 90 days for that, because I was more productive. It helped me focus on my relationships, my guitar playing. I mean, when I can't grab that bag of chips or chocolate, and then I see my acoustic guitar over there, I'm like, okay, let me just grab that. I'll get myself into a song, and I'll forget all about it. And when the cravings came, instead of grabbing the bag, I said, okay, I thought of a rational solution. I said, if I just have a piece of apple and almond butter, then I'll move on and get rid of those hunger pangs. And it was very strategic. And again, it was very enlightening for me. I mean, it really became acutely aware of the rest of my life, and all the things in it. I decided to run upstairs and start hanging out with my kids who are on their computer, right? So instead of just sitting in front of the couch, resorting to some snack, watching TV mindlessly, I said, I just ran upstairs. Hey, Clay, what are you doing?
Yeah, awesome.
And next thing you know, I'm doing something with him.
Wow, there's a correlation between not eating junk food and caring about your family.
Chips or my kids? Which do I choose?
So I know this sounds really, I don't know, totally philosophical and maybe a little corny, but it was real. It was real, and that even though I fell off that a little bit, I have changed as a result of that, because now, even when I am not being where I want to be, I understand what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, like you said too,
hard.
Adam,
it's still hard.
By as they say, backsliding in your diet and you not feeling so well now, it's also a great reminder, it looks like, in this season of your life to go, the other way was much better than what's happening.
Yeah, well, today's
now.
Tuesday. My cruise, I got back on Sunday, and yesterday I was good. Today I'm fine, and I think I am back on track. And just having this conversation, I'm telling you, it's like therapy.
It is.
Just having a conversation is the reason why you're supposed to go to those meetings, those AA meetings, right, all the time, because talking about it, being around other people that are experiencing it too, it's day by day. It's a day-by-day thing, and you can't beat yourself up if you slip up. I haven't beaten myself up over this. I just know I know what it takes to go back to that, and I just have to remind myself of all these other good things. I still have those cravings. I still have to distract myself, but in an attempt to distract myself, I'm making myself better and more productive, and I am ultimately happier. I was ultimately happier and more fulfilled, and now I'm 80% that way instead of 100% that way. But it's amazing the ramification, like a domino effect that it has just by severing your relationship that way with food.
Once you get in the groove, and all of our clients who've been in the groove, where they're compliant to their plan, like a very solid nutrition plan, and in their workouts, and they're walking frequently or something, and everybody reports that they always feel better at that time. And even if they look forward to seeing their friends, and they know that drinks are going to be, they're going to be having drinks when they go out for a happy hour or something like that. They reflect on those times. Maybe they'll have only one or something like that, or maybe they won't at all. But I think the point is, I think the mindfulness that Adam was talking about, that's like, even when you know you're doing it wrong or backsliding, you're aware of that feeling and what you're missing, and it does make you better, and you're less likely, or rather you're more likely to do what you really are setting out to do, which gets you closer to how your body feels and looks, and all those kinds of things.
To wrap up, it reminds me of conversations I have all the time with people during the first time they meet with me for a consultation to work out. I'm very often asked during that consultation, when will I see results? I very often answer that question with another question, which is, what do you mean by results? Then the discussion continues about results and what they consider results and what I consider results. And then we find that place where we both agree on that we're going to go to, and we help define results, and we have a meeting of the minds on that. Well, same thing with extremes, and the word extreme, and the definition of extreme. So if I was to kind of sum up the moral of the story here, and what we've been discussing, is that we should be extreme about being disciplined, not extreme for extreme's sake. So why don't we end it with this challenge, if you will. Pick something for 90 days that you cannot veer from, whether it be practicing your guitar every day for 90 days and seeing where you end up and what comes from that, whether it be losing a certain amount of weight and sticking to a nutrition plan, whether it be, I don't know, quality time with your family, but pick it and don't veer for 90 days and see what happens. And see if you have the same experience I had. All right, good luck, and we'll talk to you next week.
Okay, so you've been challenged. Give yourself 90 days to make a change, whatever it might be. Now, if you accept this challenge, we would love to hear from you. You can email us, or better yet, record a voice memo on your phone and send it to podcast@informfitness.com. And with your permission, we can mention you in an upcoming episode. Perhaps you need some additional inspiration to kick off Adam's challenge. If so, might I recommend Adam's book, Power of 10, the once-a-week slow-motion fitness revolution. Check out the show notes for a link that will take you right to it in Amazon. And while you're bouncing around the internet, don't forget to jump on over to informfitness.com for all of their 7 locations across the U.S. You'll also find all of our podcast episodes, and there are a ton of videos, including a bunch that my company, Inbound Films, produced for the Toluca Lake location. And speaking of Toluca Lake, looking forward to having Sheila Melody back with us again next week. So until then, for Adam, Mike, and Sheila of Inform Fitness, I'm Tim Edwards with the Inbound Podcasting Network.